hitting on the last 3 weeks is really what the very first words mean. What did here? What does here really mean? So we've been hammering that. So now we're going to quickly move on to the other pieces of the verse, and we're really going to do a word study. We're going to use four videos, all little 4-minute videos that look at each individual word. So it's interesting because I didn't realize this. Meredith put the videos together when we were going over it. Well, let's see, where am I here? Yeah, I'm going to get to this in a minute, so I'm going to pause for a second, but I'll say this. The word, when you do a word study, well, it shocked me. It surprised me. Several of the words that, well, the English words, they're just wrong. They're just, our concept of the word is wrong. And it's like, wow, I never saw that before. So you'll kind of pick up on that. I think that's so interesting. Meaning it just has the wrong connotation. We bring our modern connotation to it. It's like, that's not at all what they meant. So anyway, you'll see that. It has some interesting tidbits in it.
I hope we get to the whole scripture today, but it's so funny. God's so cool how he works. We're looking at the Shema, reading what it means, and then we were also reading in Matthew 13. We're hoping to get to, and we're like, it's just the same thing.
If you've noticed the last 2 weeks, that's what I've been saying. I've realized that I've never heard anybody else say this, so I'm claiming it for myself. Somebody else has probably said it, but Jesus' Sermon on the Mount is the Shema. It's what it is. It's his modern version of Shema. And then when you start digging in detail, you realize exactly what it is. It's the Shema. Listen, he who has an ear, hear. It's the Shema with an extremely more detailed playing it out, showing you what it really means. So it's really cool to see those parallels. Big way.
Okay, so we're going to just read just the first part of the actual Shema is Deuteronomy 6:4-9. Hear, Shema, O Israel, the Lord, and that's all caps, so it's Yahweh. Yahweh is our God. Yahweh is one. You must love Yahweh your God with your whole mind, your whole being, and all your strength. These words I'm commanding you today must be kept in mind, and you must teach them to your children and speak of them as you sit in your house, as you walk along the road, as you lie down, and as you get up. You should tie them as a reminder on your forearm and fasten them as symbols on your forehead. Inscribe them on the door frames of your houses and your gates.
I'm going to give y'all a preview because I've already started previewing it. The word soul doesn't mean at all what you think it means. That's what's shocked me. Doesn't mean at all what you think it means.
Okay.
We'll hit that, and the word strength doesn't mean what you think it means. Well, I got to give you a little tidbit here. Don't be reading ahead.
Okay.
All right.
So God is calling us to radical believing loyalty. We love the phrase, believing loyalty, and now we're adding radical to it because
Yeah, when you read this stuff today,
it's a next level.
well, if you remember back months ago when we went through the Sermon on the Mount, that's what we kept saying. It's radical. What is he telling you? He's saying, oh, you say if you commit adultery. I say if you even think about a woman. You look at each one of those things and what it's doing. It's a call to a radical devotion, a radical devotion. And so today you're going to see I added radical all through here, all over the place, even in the subtitle today. Because what it is, it's a call to be radical. And it's a radical devotion, not radical in the way the book was written, radical from, what's his name who wrote Radical? Andy Flat. He wrote Radical, and what he's basically saying is, give up everything and move into the inner city. No, that's not what it's saying. What it's saying is, it's not radical, go do social work. And I'm not bashing him, but that's what a lot of people took from that book, kind of the Christian social work kind of stuff. And that's radical. No, it's a call to be a radical devotion to who he is. But anyway, so we'll talk about that.
So notice the action verbs in what we just read. We're to teach, speak, tie, and inscribe. So we're to teach his words to our children, to speak about his word as we sit and walk and lie down and get up. Tie his words as reminders and symbols. Inscribe them on our houses and our gates.
Action verb, action verb, action verb. This is a radical devotion, loyalty over time, endurance. I like that word too, because all these words are part of all this. It's radical, it's loyalty, it's endurance, because it's over time. All these things are a part of your relationship. All right, here we go. We're going to start with, the first one's not as earth-shaking as far as what the Hebrew word means.
And this is a review, but we thought we would do ahavah again. What it means to ahavah, love the Lord.
Yeah, so we showed this last week.
Expressing their devotion to God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. Well, we're going to look at the last word, strength. The
This is not right, I
Oh,
think.
wrong one. Yeah,
I thought
that's
you
probably
had
the last one I had up.
You had it. I'm sorry,
No,
y'all.
I didn't have it on the
Okay, sorry.
For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed these well-known words as a way of expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. We're going to look at the third key word in this prayer, how Israel is called to love their God. But what?
I gotta give you a little another tidbit. What does Jesus do when he quotes that? He adds a word. He says strength and mind, I believe. Isn't it mind? And when you understand what the Hebrew connotation is, you see why he did that, because that's part of the connotation.
What does that mean? Love is a very common word in most languages, as it is in ancient Hebrew. It's pronounced ahavah. It most basically refers to the kind of affection or care that one person shows another. It sometimes describes physical affection, like the king of Persia's love for Queen Esther. But there are other Hebrew words that more specifically refer to physical desire or sex. Ahavah is more broad. So Abraham had ahavah for his son Isaac, that's parental love. Jonathan showed ahavah for his friend David, that would be brotherly love. In fact, a whole group of people can have ahavah for their leader, like when the Israelites showed love for their king David. Ahavah can even describe loyalty between political allies, like Hiram, the king of Tyre, loved David. They had good relations, and so Hiram wanted to help David's son Solomon build the temple. These are all different kinds of affection described with the one word, ahavah. Now, all of this is helpful for understanding God's ahavah in the Old Testament. So in Deuteronomy, Moses told the Israelites, God showed affection for you. He chose you because of his ahavah for you. So God doesn't love because the Israelites earned it or deserve it. It simply originates from God's own character. He loves because he loves. This is why Jeremiah can say that God's love is everlasting. It has no end because it has no beginning. God's love just is an eternal fact of the universe. And God's love is not a duty, it's a genuine feeling, an affection that God experiences. This is why the prophet Hosea compares God's love for his people to a husband's ahavah for his wife, or to a parent showing ahavah for their child. It's one of the strongest things that God feels. But that doesn't mean that God's love is just a feeling. God's love is also in action. It's something God chooses to do. Like when Moses says, because of God's ahavah for your ancestors, he brought you out of Egypt with great power. God's love isn't just a sentiment, it is something God does. And so, in the Shema, Israel is called to respond to God's ahavah by showing ahavah in return. And just like God's love, human love is to show itself through actions. Like in Deuteronomy 10. What does the Lord your God ask of you except to fear the Lord your God, to walk in his ways, to love him and serve him, and to keep his commands? All of these actions are centered around love. If I'm not doing them, I don't actually love God, I just say I do. Which leads to one last thing. In the Old Testament, I show my love for God by how I treat the people around me. In Deuteronomy, we read that God defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and he shows ahavah for the immigrants among you, giving them food and clothing. And so you also show ahavah for the immigrant. So the people are to imitate God's ahavah by showing ahavah for others. This is the idea underneath the famous line, you shall ahavah your neighbor as yourself. And so at the end of the day, all of this is rooted in God's own eternal ahavah. Like we read in the New Testament letter of 1 John, we love because God first loved us. And that's the Hebrew word, ahavah.
Ahavah. Ole Miss has lost their ahavah for lane. That's how that works.
So, can I just say two things that when I watched this made me really think is we love people that are easy to love. We don't really love people that are unlovable. You notice that? I mean, it just hit me. His love is eternal and everlasting, and it is for all his people, no matter what. Like my love for my children, no matter what. But his love is to all the unlovable, no matter what. That's crazy. And we're supposed to love like that. It's easy to love somebody who's lovable. But what about that person who has the bad attitude and is ugly to you, or is backbiting, or fill in the blank? That was very, that it's everlasting, and who God is, and the whole idea of love is who he is, and then also that we are supposed to love like that. So the action comes in making that choice to love.
You just did A through C. Do you want to read that Deuteronomy real quick?
Yeah, Deuteronomy, that they mentioned 10, 12 through 13. Now Israel, what does Yahweh your God require of you except to fear him, revere him, to obey all his commandments, to love him, to serve him with all your mind and being, and to keep the Lord's commandments and statutes that I'm giving you today for your own good? And we said that's action verbs again. Fear him, walk with him, serve him, and keep his commandments. So if you want a checklist on whether you're really loving God, am I fearing him? Am I walking with him? Am I serving him? Am I keeping his commandments?
Very good, very good.
That's
Okay.
how we imitate God or show his ahavah.
So his ahavah. Okay, so now then, so that's the hero Israel. Now it's going to be do this with all your heart, soul, and strength. So we're going to look at those real quickly, each one of them. So what does it mean to love the Lord with all your, how do you say it, Mary?
Levav.
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 Levav. That is the word for heart. And this is interesting too. This one is not quite as controversial as this one with heart, yeah. But it's interesting because you have to immediately get your mind in your biblical writer. Your biblical writer had virtually no concept of the brain, but they understood what a heart was. And so much of your language, and of course you see that in our culture today, we say, my heart aches for you. And we know that aching, those feelings, those emotions don't really originate in our heart, but that's kind of the idea here.
For thousands of years, every morning and evening, Jewish people have prayed these well-known words as a way of expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. We're going to look at the fourth key word in this prayer, heart, which in Hebrew is sometimes pronounced levav, or more often in a shorter form, lev. Now, different cultures throughout history have had different conceptions of how the human body works, and this is also true of the ancient Israelite writers of the Bible. They knew that the heart was an organ in the chest that sustains life. There's mention of a heart attack in the Bible, Naval, whose heart died inside of him and he became like stone. But the biblical authors talk about the heart in many other ways that might seem strange to modern readers, and that's because these Israelites had no concept of the brain or any word for it. They imagined that all of the human's intellectual activity takes place in the heart. For example, you know with your heart in the Bible. Your heart is where you understand and make connections. In the book of Proverbs, wisdom dwells in the heart. And your heart is what you use to discern between truth and error, like Solomon did when he was king. So the heart is where you think and make sense of the world, and it's where you do more. In the Bible, the heart is where you feel emotions. You feel pain in your heart, like Hannah did when she couldn't have any children. In fact, the phrase, a broken heart, comes from ancient biblical Hebrew. You also experience fear in your heart. Your heart can melt or be distressed. Your heart can even be depressed. But then, on the flip side, your heart is where you experience joy. In Hebrew, to be happy is to be good of heart, or to have a heart of joy. So the heart is the generator of physical life. It's also the center of your intellectual and emotional life, and there's more. In biblical Hebrew, the heart is where you make choices motivated by your desires. So David had it in his heart to build a temple for God. Your heart is where your affections are centered. They're called the desires of your heart. And if you really want something and go after it, it's like what Nathan said to David, whatever's in your heart, go and do it. So that in the Bible, the heart is the center of all parts of human existence, as in the well-known proverb, guard your heart, because from it flows your whole life. Now the prophet Jeremiah believed that the human heart was fundamentally broken. He said, the heart of a human is deceitful above all, irreversibly sick. Who can even understand it? He had watched a whole generation turn away from God. They started sacrificing their children as if that were a good thing. So this is why, in the imagination of the Hebrew prophets, the only hope for humanity is the total renewal of the human heart. Moses predicted that if Israel was ever going to love their God, their heart would need to be circumcised, which is a very vivid and surprising metaphor about removing evil and stubbornness from the human heart. David, after he committed murder and adultery, pleads with God to create in me a pure heart. The prophet Ezekiel hoped for a day when God would remove the heart of stone and give his people a new heart of soft flesh, which is very similar to Jeremiah's hope that God would write the commands of the Torah on the hearts of his people. And that brings us all the way back to the Shema. Every day, God's people are called to devote to God their whole body and mind, their feelings and their desires, their future and their failures. This is what it means to love the Lord your God with all of your heart.
All right, so see how that starts helping, because generally in our modern culture, we say heart, we sort of in our brains quickly associate to emotion. But when a Hebrew is saying, when your Hebrew scriptures are saying heart, it's talking about the entirety of the person, everything about the person, their mind, I mean, their emotions, their feelings, their desires, everything. So it's a much more encompassing word. And so when it says to devote your heart to Christ, it's saying every single thing about your psyche, your brain, your feelings, your emotions, all of it. Keep going. You want to hit that real quick?
So I liked their little picture of the heart, the thoughts.
I have to check this, by the way. Meredith just reminded me. I listen to everything 1.25 font, sometimes double speed. She goes, I think you have this on a faster speed. No, it wasn't. It wasn't. He just talks fast.
Okay. So thought is like your brain. Interesting that that's used that way in the Bible. Your wisdom, your discernment, understanding, and then the physical, like the actual generator of physical life. Emotion is your feeling and fears and joys and distress. And then choices, I thought that was interesting too. The desires of your heart is what are you desiring? I think about Melissa's picture she sent me one time of someone praying and putting something before God with open hands and letting everything fall between the fingers. So praying with like these open fist palms, not like an Eastern religion, but praying and letting everything filter through, but putting everything before God. Am I saying that right, Melissa? I should bring that picture one time. That's a good, I like the picture of that. Devote your very essence every day, your mind, your thoughts, your feelings, your desires.
All right. So now, what does it mean to love your God with all the, all right, say this one.
Nephesh.
Nephesh. So now we're at nephesh, and that is soul. And this was the first time when I heard this, I'm like, ooh, that's very different. When I say soul, what do we think about soul? Soul is what leaves your body when you die, right? That's what all of us think. That's a Western, Greek Western view of the word soul.
Right, yeah.
It's not at all what your Bible means. That's what shocked me. I'm like, whoa.
In this word.
In this word,
Yeah.
it's not what the word, but it's translated soul, so it carries what we think of soul. But what this word means, and you say all the Bible doesn't mean that at all. It has nothing to do with a spirit leaving your body. Let's kind of get a little insight to that. Where are we? I'm on it.
For thousands of years,
say just read the Shema again.
It is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. We're going to look at the word soul. The Hebrew word is nephesh. It occurs over 700 times in the Old Testament. The common English translation of this word is soul, and that's kind of unfortunate. Here's why. The English word soul comes with lots of baggage from ancient Greek philosophy. It's the idea that the soul is a non-physical, immortal essence of a person that's contained or trapped in their body to be released at death. It's a ghost in the machine kind of idea. This notion is totally foreign to the Bible. It's not at all what nephesh means in biblical Hebrew. The most basic meaning of nephesh is throat. Like when the Israelites are wandering in the wilderness, they're hungry and thirsty, and they say to God, "We miss the cucumbers and melons we had in Egypt. Now our nephesh has dried up." Or when Joseph was hauled off into slavery in Egypt, his nephesh was put into iron shackles. But nephesh doesn't only mean throat. Since your whole life and body depend on what comes in and out of your throat, nephesh could also be used to refer to the whole person. Like in Genesis, there were 33 nephesh in Jacob's family, that is, 33 people. In the Torah, a murderer is called a nephesh slayer, and a kidnapper is called a nephesh thief. On the first pages of the Bible, both humans and animals are called a living nephesh. And if the life breath has left a human or animal, the nephesh remains. It's just called a dead nephesh.
See, that's where you get a little insight into this word. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have a spirit. We do, but what it's saying is that word doesn't mean that. And so when you see the word soul in your Old Testament, if it's nephesh, it's carrying a different connotation now, and that's what's interesting. In other words, your Bible refers to dead animals as having a nephesh. It's just that the nephesh is now dead. So it's not talking about the spiritual side of it, it's talking about something else.
Is a corpse. So, in the Bible, people don't have a nephesh, rather, they are a nephesh, a living, breathing, physical being. Now that might surprise you, because most people assume the Bible says the soul is what survives apart from the body after death. And while the biblical authors do have a concept of people existing after death, waiting for their resurrection, they rarely talk about it. And when they do, they don't use the word nephesh. So even though nephesh is often translated as soul, the Hebrew word really refers to the whole human as a living physical organism. In fact, this is why biblical people can often use this word to refer to themselves, and it gets translated me or I. Like in Psalm 119, most translations read, "Let me live that I may praise you." In Hebrew, the poet literally says, "Let my nephesh live that it may praise you." And by using nephesh, the poet emphasizes that their entire being, their life and their body, offer thanks to God. In the Song of Songs, the young woman constantly refers to her lover as the one my nephesh loves. And of course, love isn't just an intellectual experience, it's an emotion that activates your whole body, your entire nephesh. This helps us understand the brilliance of other biblical poets who could combine multiple meanings of nephesh in one place. Like in Psalm 42, we read, "As the deer pants for the water, so my nephesh pants after you. My nephesh thirsts for the living God." So, on a physical level, your throat can be thirsty, like a deer's, but then that physical thirst can become a metaphor for how your whole physical being longs to know and be known by your Creator. Which brings us all the way back to the Shema. To love God with all of your nephesh means to devote your whole physical existence to your Creator, the one who granted us these amazing bodies in the first place. It's about offering your entire being with all of its capabilities and limitations in the effort to love God and to love your neighbor as yourself. And that's the Hebrew word for soul.
Isn't that interesting? Nephesh, we are living, breathing human beings our entire life, our throat. My nephesh thirsts for you. So it would be read, devote your whole physical existence to your Creator. That's what the Shema is saying. What it's saying is devote your entire physical existence. So when it uses the word soul, it's talking about really your physical existence. Devote that to God. What you got to do with it? Was that it on that one? Okay, I thought that was kind of interesting. And this next one's interesting also. That, again, the Hebrew idea is, again, when we see the word soul, we kind of bring in our Greek/modern view of it. But that's not what they were talking about, the entire physical existence. They weren't talking about that portion of you that's spiritual. They're talking about you, everything that is you. All right, last one here is levav. How you say that again? Meat. I always forget it. What's this last one there? Okay.
Expressing their devotion to God. They're called the Shema. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And as for you, you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, and with all of your strength. But we're going to look at the last word, strength. The Hebrew word is ma'od, and it occurs some 300 times in the scriptures, and it doesn't actually mean strength. There is a perfectly good word for strength in Hebrew, and ma'od is not it. In fact, the Shema is one of the only places in the whole Bible where ma'od is translated as strength. So, what's up with that? The most common meaning of ma'od is very or much. It's what grammar nerds call an adverb, a word that comes alongside other words to augment their meaning. For example, in Genesis chapter 1, God looks at the world that he's made, and 6 times he calls it good. But then the climactic 7th time, he says it is ma'od good. That is, very good. Later in Genesis,
I pause, it just seems to, as you know, it's Sunday morning and they're talking about English, and we don't have our English teachers here. Yeah, we have some, but we don't have all of our English teachers here. So what it's saying is, the way we read this, we read it as love God with these 3 things. What's really happening in Hebrew is love God with these 2 things and then do it very much. So it's not, strength is not really a 3rd thing, it's an adverb. So that's what, throw that in your brain. Again, we read it the way we read it, it looks like 3 things. It's not, it's 2 things, and then it's an adjective towards those 2 things.
in the story of Noah, the flood waters keep rising and they become ma'od powerful, or extremely powerful over the land. In the story of Cain and Abel, Cain wasn't just angry at his brother, he was ma'od angry. Or when Saul became the king of Israel, he was ma'od happy. So you can see why ma'od occurs hundreds of times in the Bible. It's a really common Hebrew word that intensifies the meaning of other words. Very this, or really that. However, biblical authors could use ma'od in ways that are unique. Like when they want to increase a word's force to total capacity, they'll say ma'od twice. So Jacob became ma'od wealthy with flocks and camels and donkeys and servants. Or the Israelite spies went to investigate the promised land and they say, the land we passed through is ma'od good. So it's pretty clear, ma'od doesn't mean strength in terms of muscle power, but rather very or much. So let's come back to the Shema, where people are called to love God with all of their heart, that is their will and affections, and with all of their soul, that is their whole life and physical being, and with all of their ma'od, that is with all of their muchness. And while that sounds kind of funny, you also kind of get it. If ma'od can intensify any word's meaning to total capacity, then this final thing that you use to love God isn't a thing at all. It's actually everything. Loving God with your ma'od means devoting every possibility, opportunity, and capacity that you have to honoring God and loving your neighbor as yourself. It's the most wide and expansive word in the Shema. Ma'od can refer to almost anything. Which raises one last and really fascinating point. Because this word was capable of many nuances of meaning, ancient Jewish communities interpreted ma'od in the Shema in different ways. So the ancient Jewish scholars who translated the Hebrew Bible into Greek, when they came to ma'od in the Shema, they translated it with the Greek word dunamis, that is power or strength. This is the interpretation adopted by most modern translations. But if you look at the ancient Aramaic translations of the Hebrew Bible, you'll discover that these scholars interpreted ma'od to mean wealth. Money is a concrete thing that opens up all kinds of opportunities to...
Isn't that interesting? What if your pastors get up and said, God demands that you give all of your wealth to him? Yeah, you get thrown out. We're going to keep it at 10%.
of God by giving away resources. And when Jesus was asked about the most important command in Scripture, he quoted the Shema, and he used 2 words to unpack the meaning of ma'od. He said, love God with all of your mind and with all of your power. Both are human capacities that can be used to love God in an infinite number of ways. So, which of these interpretations of ma'od is right? Does it mean strength, or wealth, or mind? That's the wrong question. The word ma'od doesn't limit the number of ways you can show love for God, just the opposite. The point is that everything in a person's life, every moment and every opportunity, every ability and capacity offers a chance to love and honor the one who made you. It's a call to love God with all of your muchness. And that's the meaning of strength in the Shema.
I just found this interesting. Y'all are probably thinking, oh, it's all this grammar stuff. I just find it interesting because the more I dig into the scripture, the more I realize how often I'm limited. Almost every single time when you dig deeper into any passage, especially when you go back into the original language, what I realize is that every time I've been limiting God. So I'm just fascinated by it, how often when we read the Sermon on the Mount, and that's of course Greek, when we read the Sermon on the Mount, it was like, man, how much of it was just,
That's
I used to
more.
limit it,
The
and now
muchness.
it's so,
Yeah.
the muchness, the moed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so.
I was gonna say, this hit home to me because Joel and I always talk about, like Christianity like we come to church on Sunday and we check the box and we go to church and that's it for the week, we're done. And so when we're called to be so much more, so this hit me like, wow, am I giving my muchness? Am I giving this every possibility,
Yeah, look
every
at this,
opportunity?
read that slow,
Yeah.
because that matters. This is what Moab, see, I can't say it, whatever. This is what that word means. So it does not mean strength necessarily, it means all encompassing. So think of it, am I giving every possibility? Think of all the possibilities you have in your life. Every single day, you begin planning your day. What are you doing? You're going over possibilities for that day and making choices. Every possibility, every opportunity, think of the thousands of opportunities, just whatever they are, business, social, anything, think of the thousands of opportunities you're gonna have this year long, this month. Money, every single dollar that you have, and capacity, your capacity to do more, whatever that looks like. I mean, this is so encompassing that you have to honor God and love your neighbor as yourself. Every one of those aspects, in their most extreme, what would it look like if it was completely devoted to God and completely devoted to my neighbor? That's why I changed everything in here to radical. It is a call for complete radical. It's what a lot of the Gen Z is starting to see. They're like, there's so much more to this, and it is a call to be radical. Not radical, I was thinking about this morning, choosing and also, it's not I envy, from a Christian standpoint, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna shock you with this and then say what I mean. I envy the what do you call them, what's the city that's being destroyed right now? Minnesota. I envy the activists, the crazy people, the nuts, the ones that are going crazy, that are causing all that trouble. You know why I envy them? Because they're taking these three concepts and they're blowing them up to an extreme. The problem is they're directing them in a way that is ungodly and horribly destructive. But that's exactly what Christians should look like.
We should be
And
radical.
we should be that, we should be indistinguishable from those people, except we're fighting for what is godly and righteous, and they are not. And I don't mean we match violence for violence, I don't mean that at all. I mean we match the pure desire for God's righteousness to come on earth until He returns. It's what the disciples' prayer, your kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. That should so overwhelm us that we look radical. Instead, we just don't.
The words are like.
Match their passion.
Yeah, that's really
Yes,
the
that's
word.
it.
I thought that's more.
The words are passion, saturation, obsession, obsession about something or some.
Things that we generally push
thing.
away, we think they're mental disorders. No,
Yeah.
we're called to that.
But now when you have that concept in your mind, you hear, loving God with your whole mind, your whole being, and all your strength.
And all of your possibilities and your resources and your
Right.
opportunities.
And now it sounds really obsessive. These words I'm commanding you today to keep in your mind and teach them to your children and speak about them as you sit, as you walk, as you lie down, as you get up. Tie them as a reminder on your forearm if you have to. Fasten them as symbols on your forehead if you have to. Inscribe them on the door frames. Put sticky notes up. Tell the world.
Right on your bathroom window.
Yes.
On your bathroom mirror, that's what Will does. You go into his bathroom, he's got these writings all over his mirror. It's quite
Our
nice.
little artist child.
Yeah.
But anyway, y'all have thoughts on that? It just it was exciting for us to understand
When
the
you put it in
words.
the context of going back to the Sermon on the Mount, I mean, it's like, we've always thought, there's no way we can do all these things.
Right.
There's no way, but we've been indoctrinated that we are to be more like that. I mean, there's just things in like, there's no way I can do some of those things that Jesus has elaborated on. That's really where we should be going. I mean, that's.
He expects us to be striving towards it, even if we will never perfect it.
Knowing we won't.
Knowing we won't perfect it, but we are to be striving towards those things. Wow. That's what you see why I kept going back to the word radical. We are really truly called to be radical. Read the Sermon on the Mount. It's a call to be radical.
And I don't know if it's a little bit, you talk about the Jew generation and where they're headed, where they're so radical. We kind of come from a background of a little more easy believism.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's right.
y'all
Always
are
say
coming
Jesus
to
is
me,
our life
I mean,
coach.
we can sit here and say, it was a lot easier to do these things because everybody was going to
Cultural
church.
Christianity.
Everybody
right?
was so cultural to
Yeah.
go to.
Where do you go to
Why
church?
was our
Where your
church,
mom and them go to church?
flourishing
Yeah.
30, 40 years ago? Well, it was the only church and everybody was showing up like, I'm not.
But look backwards and learn from history. that ease is not something to be desired for.
No, I'm not.
Because you know what it did? Oh, I know you're not saying this. What it actually did is it put us to sleep. And while all that was easy and our youth groups were exploding in the 1980s, what do we have now? We have 50–60% of Gen Z that says they don't even believe in God. We've got a culture that with all that great Christianity in the 80s and 90s, never for a second even slowed down, deteriorating and becoming vile and sick and perverted and pornography and abortion and on and on and on. So all that time, when we kind of look back nostalgia, you say this bothers me, we look back so nostalgically over our past and our Christianity, and all I see is a culture that continued to die while we sat there and were happy in our churches. That sounds so sad, y'all, but I remember getting another argument with my mom. I said, this is your fault. So I told her, I think I told y'all that before. I wouldn't say her, but I was talking about your generation. So, and then all we did was pick up past you, and we just allowed it to continue going down. Anyway, I could really start preaching here because I do believe it's a call for radical sacrifice. And man, Satan loves nothing more than make you feel good at your church. Just good and comfortable. Because man, that so destroys your motivation. It has mine. Okay, I'll be quiet.
This hit home to me too. You know, when I round on patients and they have all their stuff in their room, they've had a baby, and many times I'll see a Bible is like on the bedside table or on the patient table, and it occurs to me, wow, isn't that something? You have all these things to bring in the hospital. You're only gonna be there for like a couple of nights, but that Bible is so important, and it's not like packed away in a suitcase. It's so important to some families that it is sitting out on the bedside table. Like, I can't make it a day in a hospital situation would be completely understandable without this Bible. That's what I was thinking about with this, is so radical, so devoted to this that I can't. My soul thirsts, that's where the throat comes in. My very being is thirsty for the Lord, you know, every day.
We're gonna hold this for next week.
Yes.
All right, I'm gonna keep saying something then. I'm gonna say something I was thinking about this morning. I have these random thoughts when Meredith's not there, so they haven't been, so with her being on call, none of this has been, screened by her.
Oh, God.
So if it's, yes, I mean, this makes her nervous. What I mean by we tend to look at our past, we kind of long for it, which is reasonable, we do. And from a church standpoint, I look at it now, looking back at age 55, 56, now looking back, I think, all that, but I just see this steady decline, and this is gonna be weird. Let me just say this. I think that's what's happening with us with Roe versus Wade abortion. I think, what do I mean by that? Does anybody realize this? I know some of y'all do. There are more abortions today than before Roe versus Wade. They're literally higher today than they were before. But I guarantee you, not before it was overturned, I guarantee you 99% of the people in that sanctuary, aren't you glad Roe versus Wade? Absolutely, we have saved so many babies. Not true. And this is Joel speculating. Why is it not true? Because I really believe that, I'm speculating, of course, I don't know what's happening in the unseen realm and what Satan specifically is doing, but it makes sense to me. Why do you think, I'm trying to figure out the right way to say this. Why do you think it was okay for the unseen realm, the demonic realm, to allow Roe versus Wade to just be flipped right over? What had happened in the meantime? The abortion pill. They don't need a clinic anymore. That's why the abortions are up. First of all, you had about half the states that do it anyway, and then you have the abortion pill. We can just simply, so Satan's laughed. He says, watch this. I'm gonna give the church a victory, put them right back to sleep while I kill more babies. I'm really being heavy for y'all.
Assuming he has control.
I know, I'm talking very
like
metaphysically.
metaphorically,
My
yeah.
point in saying that is maybe that's how we should look at certain things, look at reality, meaning the number of children that are still aborted, that's reality, as opposed to the feelings of a victory that was hollow. Now that we look back, and we go, I'm not saying go burn down an abortion clinic, but I wonder what would have happened in the 1970s when abortion was first legalized. If every church member marched, demanded, it did a January 6th on our what do you call it, our Supreme Court, and stopped it in its track. I think about Muslims a few years back, it's been 4 or 5 years ago, where some school district in some place like Minnesota, some school district had brought, probably was Minnesota, because that's a very heavily Muslim area. Anyway, school district brought in some LGBT sexual every single one, and the whole school was mostly Muslim, and every one of them, they yanked their kids out of that school, drove the population of that school down to like 10 people, and guess what that school board did? Reversed it, took it straight out of the school, and, yeah, Christians, nothing we can do. We just keep voting for our conservative candidates who for 50 years did nothing. And then they all showed up to do something about abortion right when it almost didn't matter anymore. Y'all see why I'm very frustrated right now? Because we need radical, but we can't be stupid. I'm not saying go harm people. You don't match violence for violence, but there's something that's not working in our Christianity when it comes to making an impact in our culture. And I'm not giving y'all any answers. I really have brought y'all down. I feel bad.
You're
What am I expressing?
yeah, so what you're expressing is the frustration with the brokenness of the world.
Yeah.
But that's not what you're called to fix. That's the problem. You're gonna be frustrated with that for your whole life. People have been killing their babies since creation.
It's true.
They've just been doing it different ways and calling it different things. This
You
world
need to
just
focus individually,
this
raise
world-
relationship. to
No, this is a
relationship.
rescue mission. It's not about saving the world, it's about saving people.
Yeah.
It's not, you're not gonna bring this thing back to what you hope or wish it would be. That's God's job to restore it. And it's also his job to blow the whistle on it when he's finished with letting it be what it is. God called the game of Sodom and Gomorrah. They didn't get to do it. Lot didn't do it, they didn't do it. God blew the whistle and rained down fire and brimstone on those people. And he'll do that on this world when he's ready to do it too.
So like the prophet Jeremiah and others, mourn if you must, lament it, recognize it, hurt. That's kind of what I feel. I feel like I'm hurting, and I hope maybe that's sort of like the heart of God. You're hurting for these, but recognizing what you just said, that really is, and I agree, I've actually thought about, we've talked about that. It's not our call. So when I get like this, what I ultimately do is realize the only thing God has put me, not in control of, I'm in control of, the only thing God has actually put me where I can make a difference is one-on-one with an individual. So you're right, you gotta pull away from I'm not trying to make America heaven. I know that, I truly know that, because it sounds like that's what I'm saying, but I'm omitting the fact that unrighteousness has run amok, and I wished it hadn't. But you're right, the solution
It's been
is,
running
it's a
amok.
rescue mission.
It's been running amok since
For a
the
long
fall.
time, yeah.
It's
You know,
not gonna stop because we want it to. It's not gonna stop at all. We're just trying to save people. We're just
Which
trying
is
to
what
get
the
people,
engaging the culture.
we're
That's
trying to
what
get
we
people
know.
out of a burning building.
Yeah, we need to be rescuing every person we see, if we can.
Part of what you're lamenting is what Mr. East talking about is, entropy,
Yeah.
order to disorder.
Yeah.
And it's not just in that vacant lot, it's the world, it's society. Prior to Roe versus Wade, it was predominantly order, and how we treated unborn children, and disorder. In one aspect of the way in society, others do, I mean.
It seems to be more and more disordered, doesn't it? Just globally.
We desire God's proper governance and protection, but like I say, everything about, like I just said, everything about this world is, there's a reason the Bible says the ruler of this world is the devil, it's not God right now. So it's like, he's gonna corrupt anything, even, I think back to like the founding fathers, and I see God's guidance and providence in the founding of how this country was ordered, but despite all that, it is still it's still humans involved in it who have a sin nature who will inevitably succumb over time to the disorder of the sin. So therefore, it's like everything's gonna decay as everything does. So that's one of the things, like, we don't want that, but like, I think what he said, pull people out of a burning building, it's like, I think what Paul says, I fought the good fight, I ran the race, I kept the faith. It's like you said, individuals, we are fighting a fight that we know we can't win, but our call is to fight it as long as we can, in the hopes that we could save some
The rescue.
out of, like, we're trying to pull people off of a sinking ship on the lifeboats, and then get as many as we can as it goes down.
The proof of your radicalism is not in how you affect the world around you. it's how you love people.
Yes, it's your devotion to God and people. I agree, yes, totally, that's right, that's absolutely right.
Yeah, not radical, that's not what you meant, right?
Yeah, that's not what I mean by radical. That's what I was saying, that the Platt book about radical, and his idea was moving to the inner city and.
Which for some
It's-
people is.
Yeah, that is good,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying that that's not what it means. It means that it's how you are radically devoted to God and to people.
It doesn't mean that your desire is for correcting the world is wrong, because I think it's true that if, like, it's kind of a ground up approach, like you affect people around you, those people affect, like, they say, oh, if every person who's saved by God would affect another 2 or 3 people, then in so many years the entire world will be saved. That's true, but the problem is, the simple fact is, the way is narrow and wide is the gate to destruction. So it's like it's 2 things can be true at the same time. We should aspire to these things, but we also know that we can't be discouraged when those things don't happen, because
That's the nuance that I want to sit on for just a second. It's 2 things can be true at the same time. What do I mean by that? If you're not careful, now the pushback is entropy. No matter what, things are going to decay. I totally agree with that. The Bible tells us that. We know what it's going to look like in the end. So at this level, that's true. But our culture, our world, you do see us within the overall graph of decay. That graph is there. I see it in biblical. We're taught that entropy, it's going to happen. Within that, you have many smaller circles of revival, refreshing. One would argue that's what the America was. The world is like this, and America got a kind of a new birth, and all the enormous amount of missionaries that have happened over the last 250 years, blah, blah, blah. So I see these small circles of revival and bringing God's kingdom here, as Jesus praying that his kingdom will come, which we know ultimately won't come till he comes. But my point in saying that is trajectory, absolutely. Entropy, absolutely. Make as big of a difference on whatever level you can in the meantime as you're rescuing those who are perishing. Does that make sense to y'all?
You know,
Sometimes I'll get really mad about this.
I'm kind of, I'm at the age where I am, and where I get really, I have a real, I get stressed out by the fact that I see what's going on in the world, and I look at my children, and my grandchildren, and I think, they don't have, what are they bombarded with? And I'm stressed out, but then I see this, and I see that.
Yeah.
That is the saving, that's what's gonna make the difference. They don't know we can't solve laws are not gonna solve the problem.
That's right.
It's the one-on-one, and
Agreed.
it's the family, it's the doing the things that they're doing, and we as a grandparent, or whatever,
Which
the
makes
chil-
that
you know,
Shema so important, yeah.
but it is so stressful for me. I look back and go, God, it was so good back then, or at least I thought it was, but now it's that good whether it's decayed.
That's where I get excited, and where I bring a lot of my hope from. My cultural hope is, that's why you hear me talk about Generation Z so much, is their faith looks different, it's gonna be expressed differently, it's not gonna look like our 1980s youth groups, but it's alive in that group, and it's a minority, but it's there. And so I look at Generation Z and I go, yeah, and then these girls, these children, yeah, theirs is gonna look very different. And as older people, we have to be careful that we don't go, this is what it looked like for me, so now I'm gonna condemn what they're doing. I'm gonna support and do, as long as they're doctrinally sound and all that. I don't mean you sacrifice that, but you let them express their worship in their ways, and you support them as much as you can, and that gives me hope, because I see it in that generation.
Yeah.
Okay, medically. This is cool. I didn't really know it was gonna go here. I wondered, this Matthew part where Jesus is taking this will be cool. We'll finish that next week.
Okay.
Lord, thank you so much. It's so heavy on one sense, but it's also refreshing and light to know that you love us, and your love generates from you, and that it is eternal and it's everlasting, and that if we're a part of your kingdom, if we're with you, and our devotion and our loyalty is there, we can live in that security. We can live in a relationship that is dynamic and powerful and meaningful. Father, I just pray that you'll show us this week ways in which we can express that in the world. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I hope I didn't have it too heavy. Y'all all depressed now on Sunday. Heck, it's not depressing. I'm ultimately Optimistic.
Prospects this week? You never know, you just go, it's just one day at a time. I was telling Laura, you know, because she keeps up with you, and I want to know about things.
It's so big.